Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. Tyson, we're back, baby. Another episode previewing college football, recapping college football. And we said it was going to be a big week in week 10, and it lived up to the hype.
It was fantastic. And if you notice, maybe Brad sounds a little happier at the start of this show than he has in our previous college shows. Just wait until we get to how the bets went last week. That might explain the smile he's got on his face.
The bets were good. Penn State actually looked to have an offense. It was a great weekend for me.
That was, yeah. And then, you get to roll that happiness up into a Michigan game on Saturday for all you Penn Staters.
And so we will preview that coming up in our Week 11 preview. We're going to recap the big games that happened in Week 10, as we said. But first, if you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button if you haven't already. It really does help us out, and we appreciate it. Tyson, enough of that. Let's get into it. Bama just rolled LSU, and I know this close to your heart here. I think maybe after a couple drives, you saw the writing on the wall a little bit, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Dude, the writing was on the wall week 2. Like, there was no real world where I don't know how you could be an LSU fan and walk into this one and be like, we got Bama right where we want him. Because Bama is freaking back, dude. And we talked about it in the preseason show. You can go back and check that one out, our SEC preview, how it was like, this is not your normal Bama team of the last 5 seasons that you've gotten used to. And it took them a while to find their footing. Dude, it feels like 2014 here. Like, it feels like, this is a Jalen Hurts offense or something like that, with the way that it's not Tua. It's not Bryce Young. It's not Mac Jones. They scored 42 points. LSU's defense sucks. It was also a massive spot here for this Bama offense, and that every week they've just been answering the call since that Texas game.
Yeah, and Jalen Milroe, man. And we were talking about it a little bit. Just the dude is like in a world that we use freak athlete, like I think overused a little bit. Like, no, this dude is legit freak athlete. Like on the field with all that LSU talent or all that NFL talent, I should say, on both sides. You're like, oh, that guy's the best one out of anybody. He's got the size, he's got the strength. Like he's bowling over future NFL linebackers, and he's playing quarterback. Like he was unbelievable. I mean, 20 rushes, 155 on the ground, four TDs, just running through people. This LSU team, I think, Tyson, we'll get to it because it feels like there's a crash course happening between the mentor and the mentee that's going to take place in the SEC championship. Don't be surprised if the darker red is actually the one that comes out on top this year.
They're good, and they're still being slept on. I think they're being slept on a little bit by the committee, which honestly, at this point in the year, I think is a welcome sight if you're an Alabama fan. And then on the flip side, like with this LSU team, this is just what it is. Like that's just who they are. They're a 2-touchdown underdog to the best teams in the country, no matter which one it is. If they go in and lined up against Oregon tomorrow, they're getting smoked. If they go and line up against Texas tomorrow, they're getting smoked. And that's just who this team is. So thankfully, for college football fans, we don't have to worry about what happens if LSU finds a way to win the West, because it's going to be the same thing as it was last year in the SEC championship. It's a free walk for Georgia there, but Bama is certainly in the driver's seat right now. And I think, on a neutral, I think they'd be pretty close to at least even with everybody from 4 and down.
I agree, man. They may even be favored, to be completely honest. They're just playing at a high level right now, and it's different than, like you said, the committee sleeping on them. The odds makers don't. Like, they have their power ratings, and Bama is climbing up the rankings here. And Tyson put a bow on LSU. This is what it's going to be until they find a new defensive coordinator, until they find a new defensive scheme. Because we know that Brian Kelly can coach offense. Like, we know people don't like him, but the dude can coach offense. Now it's just going to be finding the right person to come in and take over all this talent and putting them in the right positions to succeed.
I agree.
Texas, I mean, my God, you thought this was going to be a rocking chair play at a rocking chair game when it first started. I mean, Texas looked dominant. Kansas State really couldn't do anything. This went into overtime. Texas wins 33-30. Probably should have lost this game, but they escape. Just a wild ending to this.
This felt closer to Texas. This was the Texas that I know and love, where it was like, oh man, they're gonna find how many turnovers was it?
I think 6. I'm pulling up right now because I was curious as well.
Because I think Air Force also had 6. Is that?
Air Force had 6.
Yeah. But regardless, like Texas did something that Texas doesn't normally do, and that was kind of claw their way back and win a close game in a dogfight in a game they shouldn't have won, in the game that they were by far the sloppiest team on the field. They weren't executing. Things were easy, and then all of a sudden they got really hard, really fast for Texas. Um, but again, like that's the difference between a Texas team that deserves to be ranked in the top 10 and the ones that we've kind of just forced up there over the last decade.
And it was 3 turnovers. So 2 fumbles and an interception. No, what was it? 1 fumble, 2 interceptions. Yeah, 1 fumble, 2 interceptions. So it just felt like more because they were so untimely. I think that's why it sticks out in our brain and we just pictured it more. But
well, it was Breeders'
Malik
Cup
Murphy,
Saturday too, so I might have been, I wasn't all the way present.
Your bankroll was turning over. That was the problem. So was mine. I got my ass kicked. But just Malik Murphy, he's not there yet, and it's a redshirt freshman, and this is his second game. So like everybody just expects him to come in, like it's these kids to come in and immediately take the world by storm. I think it's a little bit harder than that. It's clear that they need Quinn Ewers back. I think clear as day, because the mistakes that was happening here, and the fact that they really got the offense kind of throttled down, that's not really going to happen with Quinn Ewers, at least you wouldn't expect. But Tyson, you said it. This is what we expected from Texas. Like when they came out hot and they were dominating, it was like, oh, wow, there we go. Texas is finally living up to that hype and that potential. And then when Kansas State started coming back, it was like, oh, that's the Texas we all know. The difference was that I won this game. Like this was a game in the past that they lose. Like in overtime, that 100 times out of 100, they lose. But they win. They're still number 7 in the country. Or are they up to 6 now? I forget what the playoff committee did. I think they're still 7.
I think they're 7.
And they're 8-1 and in the driver's seat to get into the college football playoff. I can't believe we're saying that.
And Oklahoma is going backwards for all the love that we've given Oklahoma on this podcast. They threw that thing in reverse. They're clearing the lane here for Texas to just kind of be able to walk to this thing, which it didn't. That's not the way it looked a month ago.
No, not at all. So Georgia continues to win. I think that's wow, what a novel concept here. You're really breaking some news. I think what's been different though, Tyson, this past few games is that they look gettable. I think for the first time and since this run has taken over, this dominance, they look gettable. They dominated Florida at the end, but at first, Florida's kind of in that game. This one against Missouri was a dogfight, man.
And this was the classic kind of Kirby Smart smash spot in years past here for Georgia, where it was like super hyped, highly ranked Missouri team comes in, and Georgia just reminds them who daddy is in the SEC. And that wasn't how this game played out at all. I think Georgia was in real trouble here for quite a while. And it didn't necessarily play out that way on the scoreboard. And you can point to the fact that maybe the best or most diverse offensive player in the country wasn't on the field for the Georgia Bulldogs. That certainly hurts. But again, like it just feels like splitting hairs with this Georgia Bulldogs team at this point. It's like, okay, maybe they're not the best in the country, but you're kidding yourself if they're not top 3. Like if you've watched every college football team play this year, at least the big dogs, and like you would pick Florida State over Georgia in a football game, you're nuts.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. Like our expectation, and the reality of what this Georgia team is are different. Like we expect them to be the teams of the past, but that's not the reality of this team. But they're still a damn good football team. Like that's what the reality is. Like they are still, like you said, a top 3 program in the country and a top 3 team right now. But Missouri was up, Tyson, in the third quarter, 13-10, and then we saw the Georgia thing happen. 2 straight touchdowns. They were up 24-13 entering the fourth, and then Missouri scores immediately in the fourth quarter, made it close, made it sweaty, and then Georgia ultimately pulled it out because that's what they do, man. Like this is a winning program now, a winning college football program. I bet if you told somebody that 15 years ago that Georgia would find ways to win instead of ways to lose, they would think you're crazy.
Well, they would have known that Mark Rick got fired. So
that's true. Last Bedlam. Oklahoma State wins, Tyson. This was an insane game. And I know Oklahoma fans are pissed, and they got absolutely hosed in that non-pass interference call in the corner.
They did.
Maybe that was a little Big 12, like, a little, see on the way out type of thing. Like, oh, you want to leave this conference? You don't get these calls anymore. Saying that tongue in cheek. The reality of the situation, Oklahoma State is now 7-2. They are 5-1 in the Big 12. Oklahoma is 4-2 in the Big 12. There is a legitimate possibility that Oklahoma State, after losing to bad teams early on, is going to be playing for this conference championship. An insane turnaround as they beat Oklahoma 27-24.
And I keep mentioning our previous shows, but like we were both very much doubting Oklahoma State, but I think like exactly what I said was that I didn't want to put the under in because of just too much respect for Gundy, and he gets shitted on all the time because he's a man, he's 40, and it's fun. He's won a bunch of games, and he's won a bunch of big games, especially since that moment, right? Like that's the viral clip that everyone remembers. That was a decade ago now. This team just showed up and flipped the script immediately, and the fact that it's the most lopsided rivalry, at least a high profile one, in all of college football. And Oklahoma State wins the last one.
Yeah.
You can have the other 70. We don't care. We got the last one. Have fun in the SEC. Venables made a fool out of himself, probably rightfully so, with that call. But this had everything you wanted if you were an Oklahoma State fan. Like, you got to fire those guys up. You beat them. You sent them packing. And you just eliminated them from any sort of like legitimacy this postseason, right? It goes from a New Year's Six to like, are they playing Notre Dame in the Cheez-It Bowl, or like what is going to happen now?
Yeah. No, I think so. And then this other thing about that, Mike Gundy saying we'll never play Oklahoma again. You guys want to leave? Screw you. So they're going to have the last win in the history of this rivalry. And because who was it? Missouri and Kansas, I believe. When Missouri went to the SEC, I want to say it was this last year, they had an opportunity to play each other in a bowl game, and Missouri's like, no, we're pulling out. So if that's the case between these two schools, that's the one that's in the Louvre, is that Oklahoma State has the last win in the Bedlam rivalry. It's just insane to think about.
It's poetic justice is what it is.
Okay, let's close here. Washington and the USC track meet, man. This was legitimately insane. 52-42, Washington wins this one. And that didn't do it justice because it was 35-28 at halftime. There was 21 points scored in the first quarter. Washington scored 28 on their own in the second quarter. USC added 14. Like, this was nuts.
And we were sitting here laughing last Thursday when we did the show, or last Wednesday. Like, you don't set over-unders at 75.5 points. But neither one of us were like, I'm about to take the under in this football game. And, they end up smashing it, obviously, 94 total between the two of them. But I'm just a little confused at how Washington scoring 50, an offense that is electric, is the final straw on a defensive coordinator that allows 50 to everybody.
So, Titan and I have been critical of the excellent defensive for USC will go follow the loss. Finally deciding to move in a different direction, which that we've been saying that, like, that's what needs to happen. Tyson, the reason why I think this is the final draw is because as we're watching this was one of the most embarrassing things that you can allow to have happen. Washington rushed for 200 yards before contact.
Yeah, before. Nobody touched him.
Before contact. Tyson, This is their backup running back. Runs for 4 touchdowns. That just was the final straw.
Yeah, and it's fairly fitting that this is the way that Alex Grinch goes out, because he still has defenders out there, which doesn't make much sense to me. But, now, depending on who they get in that building, I think our sentiment might flip a little bit. And who knows? Lincoln might be coaching the Vegas Raiders next season. Who knows what the heck's going to happen there? But all in all, man, this was exactly what you expected to happen, like to a T. I mean, you would have been hard pressed to be like, yeah, Washington's going to run for 300 yards. You might not have seen that coming. But 52-42 feels very right for this game. And it's another kind of instance where have fun in your new conference, man. And we'll see you there, but we're sending you packing. You've had the better of us for essentially the entirety of these programs outside of some stretches here for Washington. And, it's embarrassing a little bit for some of these like high profile programs that are leaving, that they're the ones being smashed on the way out the door, right? Like Texas is really the only one carrying the banner right now for like all of these schools.
And who would have thought it would be Texas? My God, just the way that program's done the past decade, basically. And I apologize if I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. like it's been crazy all day in my apartment. Like it's been super frustrating. So if I'm choppy, I apologize. Hopefully we get past it. But Tyson, let's get into it, baby. It was a big weekend last weekend. Let's get into the week 11 preview. We got a lot going on. A lot of really good ranked matchups, ones that we're not going to necessarily preview in depth on this one. Let's just kind of go through who's in action. Arizona, all of a sudden, they're ranked. They're playing Colorado, not necessarily a big game, but high profile. Bama has to go on the road against Kentucky. This is an important game for both. Like Stoops can play spoiler. Bama can't drop their level. Miami plays Florida State. If there's one thing that we know about Miami, Tyson, it's that this is the game that they win because that's just the type of program they are.
Why not?
Right. Why not? Why not? Oklahoma State, who we just mentioned, they're up to 15, but they got to go to the bounce house. How do they feel coming off of that big one? Iowa, Rutgers, I'm just going to say this because it's hilarious. Iowa's now ranked 22nd. The over-under in this is 28.5 points.
Feels high.
Oof, gosh. Oregon State, Stanford, don't really care about that one. Oklahoma, can they rebound? They face West Virginia, who's actually played really well this season. Your boys at LSU, they're hosting Florida. Feels like a big game for both programs. It really does. Aforementioned USC, they got to go on the road to face Oregon, and then we have Duke, North Carolina, and in the rivalry there. But we got some other big games to preview. But any thoughts on any of those that you want to get off your chest that I just ran through?
Oh, I'm just a little bit upset at the way the college football season has played out because this Duke team versus North Carolina team deserves to be probably a top 15 matchup, right? Like if Riley Leonard's not hurt, if North Carolina's defense could stop anybody during their losses, I mean, they're a 7-2 football team right now that likely should be at least 8-1, if not sitting here. We're talking about an undefeated North Carolina, but the way that things have broken. It's just kind of being swept under the rug. That should just be another, like that should be game day this week, man. Like that should have been a massive, massive game, but it's just not the way the season played out.
Astute point. It's been a weird season. I really we're not making excuses for ourselves. We'll get in the money making time in a bit here, but it's been a weird season. I've heard a lot of people say that. So it's not just us, folks. It's not just us. But let's get into some of the big previews. Tennessee at Missouri. Missouri coming off a frustrating, disappointing, deflating loss, whatever you want to call it, against Georgia. Although maybe it was close, so they gained confidence from that. Not quite sure which angle you want to take there. And then the Tennessee team who, oh man, something feels different. I think obviously the quarterback play is a step below from Hendon Hooker to Joe Milton, but this is a matchup that should be good, but it just feels like it's getting overlooked.
Yeah, well, the other part is it just doesn't feel right to have Tennessee sitting here at 13. It's a weird thing to be sitting here right now, and Tennessee's looked really good at spots, but it just something feels off with the Tennessee Volunteers this season, and maybe this is the game to get back. But you said deflating. I actually am taking that the other way from Missouri here. I think that was, it's not program changing because they didn't win the game, but it was like, oh, we can play with the big boys. That wasn't you could take that loss to LSU earlier in the year and this loss to Georgia and kind of tuck your tail, right? If Georgia goes out there and wins that game by 4 touchdowns, I think Missouri's season is essentially cooked. Right now, like they're fighting for New Year's 6 spots. Like they want a big bowl game for this program, and it starts here. I think personally, and weirdly enough, Missouri finally feels like an SEC team, and Tennessee still doesn't.
Ooh, that's interesting because you got two guys, Josh Heupel from UCF, now in the Big 12, but previously was in a group of 5, and then Eli Drinkwitz, who was at App State, and they're taking over these programs. That's very interesting. Missouri feels bigger than they have in the past, like bigger bodies. I can see that. Like they were competing in the trenches against Georgia. Utah at Washington. This is a huge game. I don't need to really say much more about it because we touched on it last week in the college football playoff segment. And the same thing is true here because the rankings stayed the same in the top 6. If Washington loses this game, they're probably out of the playoff picture. That's the reality of the situation. They have to be perfect on the way in if they want to be playing in the college football playoff. Utah has a chance to play spoiler. And Tyson, what we know about this Washington team, their offense is awesome. And if it wasn't for Alex Grinch and USC, we'd be looking at their defense. Like, what the hell is going on there? I think that's scary when you talk about matchups, especially against teams like this heading into your home field.
Well, we were talking before the show, and it just no matter, the conference is exploding after this year, so this is the last time we'll probably get to say it. But the road to a Pac-12 title for a while now, like you have to go beat Kyle Whittingham. You have to, and I understand Utah's on the road this week, and they're not a great road team. Washington was able to play with Oregon, and Oregon blew out Utah. So if you're going to do some transitive property here, you would think, oh, Washington's going to have this one just fine. Utah presents some really unique challenges to Washington that Oregon didn't present, right? Like Oregon's defense is physical and they're fast, but that's not a street fight. And Utah wants to just like, look, dude, you can have your 11 yards. I'm going to make you feel me over the middle of the field here. And as the game went on and things kind of got tighter and tighter, Washington was not able to make a lot of those things happen as the game got more physical against Oregon. So I'm curious to see, which Washington team shows up. Is it the team that, looks like they might be the best in the country, or is it the one who went to Stanford?
And similarly for Utah, they blew out Arizona State. Bryson Barnes looked good. The offense was physical. But when they got in these road spots, they've looked completely different. So I think both things can apply to these teams. This is going to be a fun matchup. 3:30 though on Fox. This feels like it should be a game at 8 p.m. Eastern, 10:30
Well, I mean,
Eastern.
if they put it too late, dude, then Utah has no shot because Washington's going to score 1 billion points.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Okay, my game, Michigan at Penn State, the number 3 team in the country heading into Happy Valley, the number 10 team in the country. We get the top 10 flowers after Oklahoma loses. Tyson, man, I said I wasn't going to do this after the Ohio State loss, but yet, after Drew Aller finally looked like a 5-star against Maryland, after that offense was humming, after the offensive coordinator started throwing early down success rate, who would have thought? EPA's through the roof. I am buying back in the Penn State. And I think by the time Saturday hits, I'm going to be fully bought in, expecting to win this game, only to have my heart broken once again.
Just in time. You are just in time. This is a yearly cycle. We've been doing this for quite a while here with Penn State on this show. I was as high on Penn State as I think any non-alumnus was before the season. And I'm struggling to get there after the way that they looked awesome against Maryland. Michigan is not Maryland.
Right.
Michigan is not Maryland. And if Penn State wants to start slow, which has been kind of a bugaboo of this team to this point in the season, Michigan is not going to start slow too. Like that's a narrative from last season where it was like, oh, it's tied at halftime against whoever, against Nebraska, and then Michigan goes out and wins by 40. This year they just can jump by 40 immediately, and then you got to play catch up. I don't know if Penn State can catch up, but man, this would be. I know that it's not, because you went to school there and you understand the rivalries and everything a little better. I think this is bigger than beating Ohio State.
Interesting. I think so. The thing about the Penn State Michigan thing is it goes back, I guess, Schembechler and Joe Paterno. The hatred that we have for Ohio State is just because we haven't beaten them. Penn State's beaten Michigan in the past. It's not like an unattainable thing where we've gotten spit on by Ohio State the entire time. This feels more of an even playing field. It hasn't in the last few years where they've taken the next step and Penn State stayed at the same level. But Ohio State's always been they've been spitting down at us. And so we're like, we hate you guys. And they're just like, who are you? In a way.
Well, Michigan is who Penn State ultimately would want to be. In the way that this whole thing has gone under Harbaugh. Right. If you flip that for James Franklin, then there are, we're building another statue in Happy Valley for the way that this thing has kind of worked. And this would be a fantastic step towards getting to where they want to be. Because Ohio State, let's face it doesn't matter who's coaching, who's playing quarterback, whatever it is, they're going to be Ohio State. That's the way that this thing works. This is an attainable, if we can beat Michigan, we can play with anybody. Whereas if we have to beat Ohio State or else this whole thing is for naught. The whole season's ruined.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And listen, if you were to tell every Penn State fan that you're going to go to the college football playoff 2 years in a row, are you kidding me? That's the dream. That's what people want this program to get to. So that's absolutely what Penn State wants to get to, is where Michigan is now ranked number 3, dominating, viewed as a college football playoff team. Now, maybe if everything goes right, they can get there. No, this team should make the college football playoff. and we'll get into our last game here soon. I think the thing that may be an equalizer here for both sides. One, Michigan's struggled at Penn State when it's been at the whiteout. Like, they've gotten their ass kicked under those scenarios. And if they're the favorite, they've crumbled a little bit. This is a noon Eastern game. Still going to have a crazy environment, but not as crazy. Now, it's still going to be packed. It's still going to be raucous. Does that help Michigan a little bit more? Does that even the playing field a little bit and then ultimately tilt the thing to Michigan because it's not a night game? It's not on ABC with Kirk and Chris Fowler calling the game, potentially. I'm curious how that angle works. I know people have been talking about it this week, like, oh, this should be the 8 p.m. game.
I just want Penn State to fly around, and so everyone can shut the hell up about how good J.J. McCarthy is.
Well, Michigan hasn't played a defense like this either. Like, they've played a soft schedule, and Penn State got the rude awakening when they played their first real team, Ohio State. Maybe, just maybe, that's coming from Michigan this week. A little role reversal. And if Penn State does pull off this upset, and then Michigan beats Ohio State, and Penn State finishes out undefeated, Tyson, Penn State's in the Big Ten championship game because they beat Iowa, and Iowa might actually be in the represent the West, which is just an insane tiebreaker.
It's a disgusting year right now.
All right, enough of Penn State. You guys are like, yeah, all right, dude, we get it. Ole Miss at Georgia to finish off. Biggest game of, well, maybe not the biggest, but this feels like one of, if not the biggest game of Lane Kiffin's career. They have an opportunity to not just represent the West. They have an opportunity to do something that nobody's done in 2 years. Well, I guess Bama beat them in the SEC championship, but like, take somebody out and take out this team, this program that nobody views as beatable. And Lane Kiffin has an opportunity to do that on Saturday.
Yeah, they have a good shot, I think. This is I don't know how many times we've said it. It's like the classic Ole Miss thing where they're going to run out, they're going to be ranked in the top 10, we're going to freak out, and they're going to get bodied by somebody. And, they lost to Alabama. And that was in years past. That's the nail in the coffin. That's the end of the Ole Miss season. They lost to the first real team that they had to play, so that means they can't play. And then they looked good. And then they looked better. And like Judkins is moving and grooving. Jackson Dart's a good player. Lane Kiffin is getting things going. But the Land Shark defense, baby, like it's real. It's better than to be expected for Ole Miss teams, for Lane Kiffin teams in particular. Not that I'm not saying, Ole Miss has a top 10 defense in the country. What I'm saying is Ole Miss has a defense that can stop opposing offenses just enough that they can score enough points to win the football game. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true here. Brock Bowers supposed to be back. I think, if it's me, that's if I'm, I would say his agent, let's pretend he doesn't have one, but he totally does. Like, you got to be like, come on, man. Like, we might be sacrificing
agents now.
Well, it's sacrificing millions of dollars here if this doesn't go right. The flip side, if Georgia comes out and looks for the first time this year like the Georgia Bulldogs, like the team that was going to go 14-0 this whole time, they are rocket ship back up to number one. It doesn't matter what Ohio State looks like for the rest of the year. And I think I'm 50-50 here on if Ole Miss can play a close game or if Georgia's going to blow them out, and that's a scary spot to be.
I got to play in this game. I'm going to save it for that. I think Tyson's breakdown is great. It can go one of two ways here. Ole Miss can shock the world. They can score better than the teams who were competing with Georgia so far this season.
By a mile.
And if their defense can be force timely turnovers, that it feels like it's gone the other way against Ole Miss in years past, if that can happen for them this weekend, I mean, we're talking about Lane Kiffin knocking off the juggernauts of college football. I mean, it'd be so 2023. This is the year that it could happen, too.
It would muddy things up. It would muddy things up unbelievably.
All right, let's get in the money-making time right now. We got some action, but first, you know how we do it here, ladies and gentlemen. We got a recap, baby. And it was a great week for us. My goodness. 9-3 for me. I was so used to saying it the other way. Not this week. How about that? Play of the week, Tennessee team total over 44.5. Gets home with ease against UConn. FAU, UAB, rocking chair over. Amazing. Missouri, that was gross. We got home against Georgia. Come on, baby. They're coming back off the cocktail party. We knew Missouri was showing up. New Mexico State, very, very lucky to take this one. I mean, very lucky. We got -3 home. Liberty -16.5. They continue to be a wagon. Washington-USC over 75.5. Come on. Was there any doubt there? Kentucky -3.5 on the road. Got that one. LSU, Alabama over 60.5. What a play. What a game. And the Fresno State late night money line. Awesome sweat. They got home with these there. Miss South Carolina -15.5. Frustrating one to lose. They won by 10 against Jacksonville State. Gross. Florida State, Pittsburgh. I knew that was dead in the first quarter, so I'm not too mad about that. But Oklahoma -5.5. Now, I don't want to complain, because it was a good week. But of course, just in fashion of how my season's gone, something that's happened only 3 times basically, and freaking 21 years or whatever that's been going on since Mike Gundy's been on the other sideline happened against us this time. So all in all, a 9-3 week, Tyson. I will take being up 4.69 units this week. That was a welcome sign.
That was good for the entire pod. Unfortunately, I didn't do quite as well. Still finishing the positive here, but I had LSU Alabama over 60.5 as the play of the week. Easy, no sweat. Washington -3. I've weirdly never felt nervous during that game. Probably should have at certain points. Oregon -24.5. This team's a wagon. Like this team, they're just going to beat everybody, is what it feels like right now. Nebraska -3. Nebraska goes right back into the no bet book for me here. I haven't taken them in a year and a half, and I take them here and they lose. And then the shot play that I had, the LSU Bama, 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown in each half at plus 2,400. Milroe just decides he wants 3 rushing touchdowns in the first half. I was like, come on, dude, can you please give one to somebody else here? And then Ole Miss -3. Obviously, we end there on a push. We'll take it. We'll take a 3-2 in 1 week.
Good week. Absolutely good week. Like, we needed that, like Tyson said. This it felt good. It felt necessary. So Tyson, like he said, we had that push. So 3-2-1. 0.79 units in the positive. So all in all, in week 10, we were up 5.48 units. I'm the one holding this baby back. I'm still down 15.75. Just a brutal year. Tyson's down 6.23. So as a podcast, we've been down 21.99 units. So basically 22. So tough season. We're hoping we can turn it around to make it manageable late in the year. That's what November's football is all about, baby.
Time is running out quick.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right, let's do it. I'm going to start first. You guys know how we do it. I have more picks than Tyson. It's how it's going to be. I'm starting here. South Florida -6.5 at home against Temple. This Temple defense is atrocious. I can't believe we're getting this under a touchdown. South Florida, what they do is run the ball efficiently. They can throw the ball. Temple can't stop either. Can't stop either. Give me South Florida at -6.5 at home to just smoke the Temple Owls. Second one, Tyson, I'm going back to it. Tulane -22.5. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not going to lie, but Tulsa's defense is really, really bad. And what they're really bad at is defending the pass. Horrible EPA defending the drop back. Tulane can throw the ball effectively and efficiently through the air. I'm going to take his chance here. Tulane's been sleepwalking. I think this is the one where we can see them wake up and dominate a football team. So give me Tulane -22.5.
Well, you mentioned some bad defenses there for your picks, and I think that's going to be the theme this week. Brad, for my first play, I have James Madison -24.5. They are hosting Connecticut, and for as bad as Temple's defense and as bad as Tulsa's defense is, I think UConn is sitting right there overall roster-wise. I mean, this is – I don't know how many times you can get excited about UConn football, but it felt like people were pumped, and it's just not going well. JMU looking to close out an undefeated season. A little bit worried here. There could be a look ahead to App State in the coming weeks here, because that's going to be the real big one. But what are we doing? Let this team in a bowl game. Like, because they had jumped up in class, they're being penalized? This makes no sense.
It's the stupidest thing. And then college basketball happens where these teams, they jump up and they're not able to win their conference, can't compete. I'm like, you guys realize that's harder. Like, if these D1 teams are going down.
James Madison basketball just blew up a 25-leg parlay for you.
I know. I should be hating them, but I respect it. I respect it too much. My next one, Kansas State -20.5 at home against Baylor. I'm concerned about the letdown. I'm not going to lie to you here. This is a really well-coached team under Chris Kleiman. I think Will Howard, he got some mojo at the end of this half and at the end of that game, And Baylor's defense is Swiss cheese. Like, it's not the same Baylor defense that's been under Dave Aranda in the past. Doesn't feel like they have the firepower. I am concerned this is a big number, but I'm going to take a shot here on Kansas State to let out some anger on Baylor, who's been getting
Do you think
pounded.
do you think Aranda's going to be looking for houses in LA?
I do. I think he's going to be the next DC.
Me too, which is a scary, scary thought.
Yeah, oof. Well, maybe he's going to take over the head coaching job there because Lincoln Riley is in Vegas.
He'll be in Vegas or Dallas or whoever else. Some random opening
Chicago,
appears. Yeah,
something
he's
like
going
that.
to be linked to all of them.
Tennessee, Missouri over 58.5. Okay, so Missouri secondary can be gotten. Tennessee secondary can be gotten. The question mark here is, what is Luther Burden's health status? One of the best receivers in the country for Missouri. If he's good to go, which he came back into the game last week against Georgia and played, listed as questionable this week. If he's going, this is smashing. These two teams, when they play, is fireworks. I like this to go over 58.5 comfortably. So give me this one. I think this is a good rocking chair play for us.
Well, I'm going to go the exact opposite of a rocking chair play because this one is going to be sweaty, or we're going to lose immediately, and we'll know pretty quick here. But we mentioned time is running out on the season. I'm trying to get some units back, man. I got Utah money line. They're going on the road, which isn't great, but it's sitting here at plus 260 at the moment. And it kind of feels like, this is a feel spot. It just feels to me like this is a if you switched out the names and you put USC over Washington here, I think that, everybody in the country would say, oh, well, Utah presents some pretty unique challenges here that they haven't had to face. It's just we're all in love, and I'm guilty of it too. I still think Washington should be a top 4 team in the country, at least in the polls, but I think this is where they slip up. They have been slowly coming back to earth since the beginning of the season, and Utah is the team to just grab you out the stratosphere and throw you right back down.
So I don't have the same type of balls that you have to take the money line, so I'm going to take the points. I got Utah plus 9.5, and it's weird that it's not the 10, right? Like, we'd prefer it to be the 10.5. I think it's saying something here, though, to be completely honest. Like, the fact that this isn't 10 points with that type of quarterback, the number 5 team in the country, I think Utah is going to play smash mouth football. Their defense is much better than what Washington's faced so far, except for playing Oregon. But like you said, it's different challenges from playing our boy Morgan Scalley that our guy Brock Heward absolutely loves every time they're on TV. Yes. And this offense, listen, Washington's defense is horrible. Utah's going to be able to move the ball. Like, you just run the football. You're going to be able to move this thing. If you just get a few extra stops, I think they're in this game, and I think they have a shot to get your money line play home. So give me Utah plus 9.5 here. And Tyson, I'm taking a money line myself, but it's smaller. It's UCF money line at home plus 114 against Oklahoma State. 3:30. I wish this was a late game because Bounce House will be going nuts down there at Central Florida. But still, Oklahoma State's now got to travel across the country, go into Florida, play in that environment. I think Central Florida, like, they're gonna be sniffing an upset here. Oklahoma State's defense is bad. John Reese Plumlee, I think, is going to be able to run all over him from the quarterback spot. I think he's going to be able to throw all over him as well. And then it is scary getting back in Gus Malzahn against Mike Gundy, but I think they get it done here. Give me, in a classic letdown spot, UCF money line.
And I'm going to stay on this game here, Brad. I'm going over 64.5 in this Oklahoma State at Central Florida game. And you kind of just laid it out the way that I feel, because the reasons that you listed that UCF could win the game are kind of basically the same reasons that Oklahoma State could win the game, right? Like, this UCF defense isn't exactly scaring anybody. Anyways, I think we're gonna know pretty quick what Oklahoma State team is going to show up. But I'm at a point with this team where I just think they're going to be ready to roll. I'm too afraid of a letdown spot late in the game. Like, it's emotional to win Bedlam. And then I think they're going to be a little slow to start here. And I think they're going to get rolling on offense. But again, like, you're going to the Bounce House in the fourth quarter. It's not going to be the same kind of thing. And it's a lot of, like, they're drained, man. Like, there's just no way that you're not. But again, like, this is a 42-35 football game.
I could see that. I was looking at the over myself, but like what you said, I'm concerned about the slow start. I think UCF, I think they're going to do a majority of the damage here, which could get you home early, and then it's Oklahoma
Nobody
State
lets people
cutting
back in the
through.
game like UCF.
That's the thing. I mean, we just saw it with Baylor's offense. Imagine this Oklahoma State offense. I mean, the rate that they're putting up points, Tyson, is actually ridiculous. I'm gonna go to an over as well. I will say, I have no clue what to expect out of these two teams, but I'm taking Washington State and Cal over 58.5. The reason why that I'm taking this, one, I like the matchups comparatively for strengths and weaknesses. Cal's really good at rushing the ball. Washington State struggles at defending it. Cal has a hard time defending the pass. Washington State is really good efficiently throwing the football. So I'm going to take my chances here on two teams that are well, at least Washington State really struggling to find kind of like what's been working and going and has gone away from what had them or what gave them notoriety earlier in the season. Where I think Cal kind of knows who they are and they just want to run the football and they're okay winning and losing that way. So I think they're going to stick with that, kind of see what happens. I think they'll have success in this one doing that. And then the other side, I think Washington State will get back to let's just throw the football because it should work in this one. Where I think they'll find success. So over 58.5 in this. And then I'm going to go for my last one before the play of the week. I'm taking Oregon minus 13.5. So I don't want to mess around with the 14.5 where it's currently set. So I'm going to get this under that key number. And I could be making a mistake here because maybe they just blow out USC. I just don't know what these guys have in the tank at USC. I mean, Caleb Williams is crying on the sideline, and I know some people are making fun of him. Whatever. The kid's emotional. Jeez, man. Like, do we not have any emotions in this freaking country anymore? Like, dude's frustrated he lost a football game, man. Like,
What? They only scored 42. Score more if you want to win.
Right. You fire the defensive coordinator. I don't think this is a bump. I like sometimes we talk about firing coaches, and it's it's a bump. Like now the kids will be motivated. I don't know. This is just a bad situation there. It's rotten. It's not good. And like you said, Oregon is a wagon. They're going to cut through this defense like a hot knife through butter. Just cut through them. So give me Oregon minus 13.5.
I think Oregon is the scariest team in the country. I think that there are 4 teams right now that are really hoping they don't lose their spot in the playoff and let Oregon into it because that's going to be – they're a tough out, man. My next one here before I get to the play of the week, I have to do it. I have to take Kansas minus 3.5 at home against a Texas Tech team that preseason I was told by somebody on this podcast there was a lot of smoke about this Texas Tech team, and everybody was in love with this Texas Tech team, and they were going to surprise people. And I have lost out of the 6 units I'm down. I think 3 of those are just strictly Texas Tech's fault. I have to fade this team and go with my boys here in Kansas, a team that I've been probably irrationally high on now for 2 years, 2.5 seasons, and they're faster. They might not be more physical. That might be a stretch, but they look more physical. I don't know if it's like actually going to play out that way. Kansas knows how to win games. Kansas knows how to win tight games. Texas Tech knows how to give games away. 3.5 is not enough to scare me.
All right, here we go. Play of the week. Georgia team total over 34.5 minus 120. This is a 2-unit play. 2-unit play for me.
$20,000, people.
Here's my reasoning. Ole Miss, we talked positively about their defense. I think it may be smoke and mirrors. Did we see what just happened against freaking Texas A&M? Their quarterback's got a broken ribs. He can't throw it as it is. They got no playmakers on that side of the football. Now you're playing Carson Beck, who is confident. Ladd McConkey looks like a guy. Even if Brock Bowers doesn't come back, I don't think he's going to come back, me personally, Tyson. I think they're using that as a game plan excuse. Prepare for Brock Bowers. Their backup tight ends are freaking 5 stars too. And, oh, by the way, they found the running game again, Georgia.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Now you're going to throw that in and play action passing. I think they make a statement. This is the game that Georgia makes a statement. 7 p.m. at home, national TV. This is like, oh, we're not the number 1 team in the country. Yeah, remember us? And boom, just blow out this team.
I think that is probably in 85% of the time that these 2 teams play. That's probably what's going to happen. Plus, you're going to get your boy on the call, so that's good for you. I'm going with my play of the week here. Missouri money line minus 102, hosting Tennessee. I said it I feel like Missouri is finally a part of the SEC in a way that translates to physicality and speed. And those are the things that Tennessee has always struggled with, no matter if it was Derek Dooley or when it was Lane Kiffin or now there's Heupel. It's just kind of a it's just I was gonna say like organizational, but it's really I don't know what the exact term would be for program here. But Missouri's just too damn big, too fast, too physical, and they're supposed to be here. Tennessee, I don't think is supposed to be here.
Interesting. I'll be rooting for Missouri. I'm liking this team. Plus, I have a future on them, so I need them to win at least a couple more here. So let's go, Eli, baby. My boy Eli Drinkwitz.
Yeah, if we can get Eli and we can get a Mark Stoops win, it's gonna be a big week for the pod.
That would be big week for our guys out there. All right, that's going to do it for Money Making Time, Tyson. I am, as we stand here, as we're recording, what's today? Wednesday. I just think I may have actually hit some Makin bets, which I've been struggling with all season. If you want to find those plays, where can you find them?
They're in the Chalkboard app. It's an app you can download on the App Store, Google Play, wherever you download your apps. The group name is ISWIS, presents the Roundtable Bets. Pretty much type in any combination of those words and we will pop up. It's a free group. We'll let you write in. Brad has his Maction in there. We have NFL plays. We have NBA plays. Whatever you can think of is going on. And, I think that there is a pretty awesome UFC event on Saturday as well. So if you think Yuri Prohaska is coming back and his shoulder is okay and he's going to knock out Alex Pereira, let us know. And if you think the flip side, let us know. And just hop in there. We'll tail, we'll fade. We're really just looking for engagement. We just want you guys to go in there and have a good time with us. And Brad disappeared, which was a perfect time for his Wi-Fi to finally give out here at the very end of the show. We made it 47 minutes, and you only sounded like a robot once by my count. I'll have to listen to the whole thing. But all in all, man, I think the Bitcoin operation you have going on in your apartment, it was fine today.
It was fine, and I think that's because, Tyson, I was able to upgrade because we actually hit some bets. So we were able to upgrade the system.
You got fiber now?
Like yeah, exactly. In the meantime, guys, like, subscribe, and share the show. We always appreciate you guys watching. We can't say it enough, and if we don't say it enough, that's our fault. But we do appreciate everybody who watches and listens, shares the show, tells a friend, tells an enemy, whatever the case may be. We do appreciate that. Stay connected with us in the meantime as well. X, Instagram, TikTok is our handle on social media at ISWIS_pod. So you can find us there. We'll be back later in the week talking NFL, previewing what's going to happen. I think this is going to be a very difficult week to handicap. So that's why you need the guys here. We've had a much better NFL week. So hop on with us there. We'll talk to you all then. Peace.